All right, we are gonna go ahead and get started. Just 1 minute past the hour. We're certainly appreciative of everyone's time today and our panelists' time. So we are gonna go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to another Anyline webinar. This webinar, we're talking all about Automotive 2023 tech highlights and industry insights with a very distinguished panel. And I'm very excited to have everyone here. Quick introductions before we get started. My name is Mark Babin. I'm the creative director here at Anyline, and I'll be moderating today's session and hosting it, and hopefully guiding us through a pretty fascinating discussion. I'm joined by Anudar Hannibal, the managing director at Carve 8 and 1886 Ventures, who is joining us from Germany, and Christian Pleichner, our chief product officer here at Anyline, joining us from Arizona, and Zach Olson, founder and CEO at Treads in beautiful Park City, Utah. So it is truly international across both sides of the Atlantic, and I'm very excited to have this panel with me, as I mentioned, for what is going to be a quite interesting talk on the interesting year that it's been in automotive this year. Now, before we get started, just a quick house rule. We want to encourage questions today. We love it when you all engage with us, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A button. Please feel free to go ahead and click that and type your question out to us, and we will get it directly and answer it after the session. If you want to send that question anonymously, we want to make sure you have that option. Just go ahead and click that button, send anonymously, and we'll get it that way. Just be aware, if we run out of time at the end of the session and we weren't able to address your question, if it was sent anonymously, we don't know who you are. We can't reach back out with that answer. So just so you're aware and you have that option. Otherwise, let's jump straight into the webinar today. I can stop sharing the presentation. Let's get all of our panelists up on the screen. There we go. Great to see everyone. Thank you so much for being with me. I know we have a variety of time zones happening here in different parts of the world, but I'm very grateful for you all to be with me. It's going to be a fascinating talk. It's been an incredible year in automotive. We've seen exponential growth in both AI technologies, AI adoption, digitization, and everything. And not only in automotive, but in everyday life. Perhaps part in thanks to tools we're seeing online now, like OpenAI, ChatGPT. I was even watching a video this morning a colleague sent me from Google where they were playing some Gemini highlights, which is like properly scary and impressive all at the same time. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but it's phenomenal. But the truth is, and I think we can all agree on this, that AI has been around for a very long time. It's just now that maybe it's hitting the market in a different way. So people are starting to maybe not freak out, but maybe understand it in a different kind of way. And a lot of the automotive systems, they've been AI based for a long time, a lot of background systems and stuff like that. So to bring this topic, AI revolution, our first topic today, Anudar, I'd love to come to you first on this. Given your extensive history with tier one OEM brands like Mercedes, and now with 1886 Ventures and Carve 8, from your perspective, is AI advancement something that you find successful brands and operations have always proactively planned for? Or is there kind of a neutral reactive response given how fast we're seeing AI advance now more than ever before?
So first of all, thank you very much, Mark, for the invitation and so introduction, and also hello to the audience. You know, as you already mentioned, I'm coming also from an OEM, and so OEMs, automotive OEMs, they of course have a quite, let's say, good understanding of the trends they are coming. Yeah. So as you know, 2016, Mercedes-Benz, for example, they introduced their big strategy, which was called CASE, connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. And of course, they're observing, yeah, so what is happening in these areas and so on. But as you know, those automotive OEMs, they are coming from completely different, let's say, segment or industry. That's more engineers and let's say more hardware. So car building, nice cars, and of course, this is the strength. So the engineers, they're really building perfect and nice cars, but on the other hand, there is of course still a big lack of the tech capacities, know-how, and so on. So therefore, of course, let's say those OEMs, they're observing, let's say, what is happening on the AI side, but nobody is, let's say, building up their own AI, let's say, technology, because as I already said, this is not the home turf, right? On the other hand side, of course, we see that everyone starts now as all of a sudden chat GPT, and everyone woken up, oh my god, yeah. But I mean, they're of course starting, and there are some already use cases for even automotive OEMs using it for production, optimization of processes in the production, or even optimization of sales processes, but they are still in the pilot phase, right? So and I think they already started, or they have already realized that there is no way that they're building their own, let's say, AI, whatever platforms and so on, because they understand that, you know, because of this very fast development, they don't have this huge resources. Nobody has, right? So nowadays, so you have to do cooperations. So they do cooperations with ChatGPT. They're even now considering, let's say, to have a look on open AI platform solutions and so on. But of course, on the other hand side, as there are huge corporations, they are maybe not so quick, and there are, of course, some legal restrictions and risk they have to consider, right? So the focus on data protection and customer, especially customer data protection, and so on. So and also the focus of let's say the whole world on this big corporation is of course bigger, or the interest of what they are doing and how they are doing, and therefore they are of course very cautious what they will and how they will introduce this technology, right? So this is what I see, and what I think is happening now, and of course they have to somehow let's say use this technology, right? Because autonomous driving, you can't think about autonomous driving without AI. You know, in the end, it's the machine is driving the car, not the person. And with this, you can't just let's say separate those topics, right?
Interesting. Do you think, just kind of going off of some of your comments, do you think OEMs will eventually, or at some point, think about integrating like a chat GPT or some kind of like AI assistant into like an infotainment, you
Yes,
know,
of
built
course,
into the,
they are already starting, you know, the pilots to see how it works, and doing some cooperations. Yeah, so I know it from Mercedes, and also other, like you know, the US Ford and so on. So they're also let's say doing it, and so there is not only the consideration they have to do it, right? So you know, in the end, what drives the business is the customer. So if the customer wants to have it in the car, then OEMs have to somehow react on it, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think it's actually a really interesting angle as well, because yeah, we see speech recognition getting a little bit more personal, and the tools are now out on the market publicly that people are playing with, obviously, that have enabled this real personalization. So it seems like a natural fit to get it into an infotainment system. A question that did pop up for me while you were speaking there is the OEMs, obviously they can't have these big focuses. They have to maybe rely on other providers to give them tools and to use solutions from other players. Can OEMs get away with a lot more then, or is there opportunity, you think, for smaller players to kind of step up in the market, maybe where the OEMs are a bit more conservative? How do you feel that is, or can they just get away with anything because they're so big?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in this area of the business, I think even small startups can get huge, right? So we see this what has happened with Tesla. So I mean, so everyone one was laughing and saying, ah, yeah, there is an you know. Billionaire there and wants to have a hobby and wants to have his own car, but in the end, I mean, the PC or PC on the wheels, yeah, this is a Tesla. So and yeah, and even electric one. So and this is what the customer wants, and then even let's say a smaller or even new OEMs, they're coming into the market. It's not only also US OEMs, and there are completely new OEMs from China, and they think completely different. They think about, you know, tech. They think IT tech, and not like producing a perfect car, because in the end, the hardware and all this around the hardware, it's more or less comparable nowadays. Yeah, I mean, maybe a different design and so on, but you know, you have to have a competitive advantage, right? So USB.
Yeah, definitely that soul is what really makes that brand stand out, and that's not the hardware. You're right. I think that's a great point. Talking about some specialized companies really learning to excel here, Zach, I'd love to bring you into the conversation, obviously, with what you're doing over there at Treads, and obviously doing that B2C angle. Obviously, you're working a lot with customer demands and trying to meet customer demands as people become more educated in their cars. How have you found that the rapid evolution that we've seen of AI has allowed you to do things at your team that maybe were previously impossible, impractical, not being done at all? Has that really enabled you to do things that, yeah, were without reach before?
Yeah, it's so crazy to think about, and kind of going back to your earlier comment where, you know, AI has been around for a long time, but I think for a lot of technologies to like come really to fruition, right? And to kind of have this actualization moment, it's timing of everything. And when we talk about this type of technology in the auto space being adopted at mass scale amongst consumers, you know, it very much so is the time is now. Like, I think one, the consumer mindsets they've totally shifted. You know, consumers, especially a younger demographic of consumer who has, you know, really grown up with this on-demand economy, you know, the way that we consume every different angle of what we do in life. Um, you know, alongside with, I mean, basically everybody in the world has a high-powered computer, you know, in their pocket. You know, everybody's smartphone has completely shifted, you know, what is possible in this realm. And we start just connecting all these dots from consumer mindset and their readiness to adopt these things to, you know, the actual technical capability to be able to ship these products to the mass, you know, mass market. So yeah, I mean, that's where it gets so exciting is, okay, now all these dots are being connected, you know, consumers are ready to really embrace this because they expect things delivered differently now. And yeah, that's the opportunity really that we're seizing at Treads, you know, going directly to consumer. And you know, really it is the AI technology that allows us to rethink so many things about a business, you know, the way it's delivered, the way it's consumed, you know, even the business models associated with, you know, each business that we try and dissect. But when we talk about maybe Treads as an example and delivering a subscription business model for auto maintenance, tires, oil changes, alignments, you know, it really is the technology that, you know, is kind of reforming the foundation that you can launch these new business models from. So it's a very exciting time. And that's really what we're focused on is, how do we, really approach it from that consumer lens.
So it really is from a demand point of view based on you seeing this is out there, people want this. How do we leverage AI to give them what they want without having to guess as much?
Exactly. Yes.
That's awesome. I think it's an interesting point of view, right? Because it's a different way than it's been for a long time. Before automotive companies, OEMs, everyone used to drive the conversation. And this is an industry-wide thing. This is not like specific sectors. We're seeing it OEMs, we're seeing it dealerships, we're seeing it in auto service, we're seeing it across a variety of automotive products. Which, Chris, this brings me over to you. Obviously, as a chief product officer, product is sort of your thing. How have you seen AI drive product evolution across the automotive industry? I'm sure we can be specific about different sectors, but if we start with broad strokes, how have you seen AI change what we're actually seeing be developed and be delivered?
No, very good question. I think, to follow up on all the things that we already said, right? If I think about it, and I think, talking our own book, obviously, right? I mean, we do this since we founded this company 10, 12 years ago, right? Where AI and the ability of a phone, to Zach's point, was always in the center of how can you make technology available, right? Scan stuff, provide feedback, etc., right? So we were, I would argue, really early, and we can claim that we are really built on AI, not added AI. But to all the discussions that we had before, right? If I look from the outside in the 10,000 feet view, what is very interesting is now suddenly, I would say different to a year or 2 years ago, tool providers in this space are coming to us and ask us to integrate. I think it goes on one hand to Zach's point, where we said suddenly the end user expects a very different experience. Right? Nobody want to go to a location and wait for 3 hours. Somebody should better show up in his driveway and fix it and leave, right? And we see some of these scenarios and use cases already. And to the other point about OEMs, right? I mean, they have to kind of ramp up their game and figure out how they are really relevant going forward for their customers, right? And again, with this technology shift, and I think AI is around for many, many years, I think really ChatGPT kind of opened the door to say, now everybody, and I had recently a discussion with an investor in the Bay Area, who said, now everybody in a boardroom talks about this stuff, and you better get on board and you better have a plan, ideally in the next 2 weeks, or you are really struggling. I think in the stock market we saw, I think this quarter, 47% of all companies reported talked about their AI strategy. So obviously everybody is on the ship, which helps all of us, right? Because I mean that's where we come from, and that's where our bread and butter is. And then you dive into the different segments and the different use cases. But again, to the phone and the technology that's now available, and opens up the door that was not available 2, 3, 4 years ago, right? And suddenly you see also big players who, I would argue, a year or 2 years ago said, we will never have to do that. I don't have to worry about that part, right? Suddenly come also to us and say, okay, how can we partner? How can we work together? How can your technology help us to stay relevant in this market and be able to serve our customers? Because again, right, as Zach said, the world is shifting significantly. People expect something different, so you better provide to them, or you're not there anymore, right?
And what's crazy too, kind of, riding your your coattails here is, I mean, you have to look at every dynamic of your business, because there's an AI strategy for all of them, from operations to revenue to customer experience. And that's where it can be overwhelming. But, candidly, I think that this is, again, to your comment, like if you don't have a strategy for them, or if you're not at least thinking about it, you're going to become quickly irrelevant in your space. So there's so much to tackle for sure.
No, it's true. It's exciting times. And whenever we had the discussion, to your point, right? And I always say start with one thing, because to your point, right? There are many layers where I can apply this technology. And I have a lot of discussion with big companies saying, okay, this is very overwhelming, right? And we are building stuff that is big and heavy and expensive, right? And this is not how we roll typically, right? We don't release stuff every 2 weeks like software companies do, right? And my recommendation is always start small, but start somewhere, right? Ask yourself, what is an immediate advantage for whoever you want to solve a problem for, right? Typically, you start with the end user, but also, for, as I said, tool providers have not the end customer, but their customer is kind of a service company like a Discount Tire or Walmart, right? So ask yourself, how can you make their life better? But yeah, it's a exciting and changing time, and yeah, it's fun. I really have to say it's fun because you see now people trying to really figure out how can we be part of this game, right? And I think that's important, right? Otherwise, you stay behind.
Yeah, I think that's
and the risk is, of course, that those big corporations and OEMs, if they see, let's say, a new topic, that they start to think big. And as Chris, you are completely right. So there is no way to think all about everything and develop the biggest and the best strategy ever. And then because you have to start with educate your own people, that they understand what is AI, and then this is the one thing, and then to pick up let's say one area of the business, saying maybe customers experience, and then let's focus on this. What are the areas we can use, and what could be, let's say, the quick wins and so on, and to do it, not to develop the nicest strategies and PowerPoints, right?
Very true.
I think it actually also comes out into your point there, Nudar. Like, it really has to be ingrained within the culture for things to be pushed through, not just ideas that are ideas on a wall and we look at them once in a while. I think really having it ingrained in the culture, and that kind of really bridges really nicely into the next topic I wanted to discuss, and that's this digital disparity within the space. I think, we're all in very different areas of the automotive industry. So I'm really curious on your perspective on this. And Anur, I'll stick with you on this one, because the work you're doing with Carvate obviously is quite deep set in the world of digitization and like automotive digitization. I mean, your website clearly says, like, at the very top of the site, we operate your individual car subscription system fully and completely digitally. Like, I love that, because it's like, that's the culture, that's the core. Right? It's a digital-based subscription system for a vehicle. It's super clear. So obviously you're built really much on that. So obviously what you're doing is quite disruptive. We spoke about that in our podcast a few months ago, on that disruptive nature of the subscription model specifically. But as a result of this disruptive nature, do you find that your side of the industry is more open to digitization? Like, the world you live in with what you're doing now, is it more open and people are more open to digitization, or is there still a gap between what's being utilized and what's available? And we talk about all these new solutions and products.
So from what I see in daily work is that, the technology is already there. So it was already there even 5 or 6 years ago, where we started piloting car subscription model, where customer could open and close cars, keyless opening and closing, with the telematics, and the swapping the car without let's say human interaction. So just taking the pictures of the car and damage let's say a report and so on. So everything digital with your iPhone. And if I compare right now and who is on the market doing it, like, rental companies are still, of course they are doing something, but it's not so quick as I would wish, right? So there is still a gap. So there is, of course, every player in the automotive market understands right now digitalization is a key. So everyone has understood it. It's perfect. But then, if I go to my business, so what we are doing is we have this completely digital platform, which is a plug-in solution and a white label solution. So we offering it to the automotive market players who wants to offer a car subscription, and we realize So we speak with OEMs, we speak with car dealerships and so on, and still there are car dealerships that they don't have even a nice website where they display their fleet, you know. So even to sell it, yeah. So not to offer a car subscription, and so it means that there is still a gap, and those of the car dealerships who understand this and will quickly implement those kind of solutions and so on will survive in the market. Because as I always say, in the end, the customers are not in the showroom anymore. They are not coming in the showroom to search for the car or ask for car subscription or for even leasing or something. They search in online, in the internet. They're sitting on sofa and searching for the next mobility solution, right? The car. So and you have to let's say meet your customer over there where the customer is, right? So and this is where I see the of course the gap is not that huge as it was like 5 or 6 years ago, but still the you know that this is so slow that you know the majority of course starts to understand and implement, but it's not that quick enough. And of course there were some let's say arguments like saying, you know, our customers, they are not that young and they prefer to have human interaction. And I say, you have to combine this human interaction in the dealership with the digital solution. So your customer, even if your customer is 40 or 50, he is also sitting with his smartphone and looking for car. Maybe not so quick like an 18 years old guy, but still he wants to compare a car offering or a car subscription offering and so on. And he does it not like driving from one dealership to the next one or something, right? And so therefore I would wish that you know the players will be quicker in closing this gap, and the customers, there is no big gap even between the different ages or generations, from my point of view. I don't know whether you see it differently.
Zach, I'm curious on your point here because you've literally gone to the person on the sofa. So I'm curious your perspective on this, because it is literally, you're going to the consumer, right? You're skipping sort of the business side of it. But as Anura mentioned, there's a gap on the consumer side based on what they're delivering to their customers or potential prospects. How do you find that gap in your industry? It's got to be quite different.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you kind of take a step back and try and dissect it all, because there's a glaring gap in the auto maintenance, auto service side, because you know you have a lot of incumbents or legacy businesses, right? And when you start thinking about how can these incumbents in the market start quickly adopting cutting edge technology, you know, they have barriers of entry of their own, which is like legacy software, legacy systems. They lack, let's say, entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship inside of the company, you know, to lead the initiatives. You know, there's all of these dynamics, and you know, so that naturally leads to a gap. And then there's this whole concept of, you know, some type of like cannibalism of how do we shift or adopt even the way we generate revenue? What is this technology going to do to disrupt kind of our, you know, we don't want to rock our boat, right? Kind of mindset, I think, inside of large companies, even on the service and maintenance side. But, you know, that's where, you know, it does open a window for startups like Treads to come in, where, you know, we can very nimbly come in and develop this technology, deploy it to the market. But the beautiful thing here is when this happens in the marketplace, there creates this unique opportunity for incumbents and startups to go through this collaboration process of, every big company has to ask themselves, do we build this technology? Do we build this business? Do we buy it, go out and acquire it, or, create some type of strategic partnership? And, that's actually, where we found a lot of growth, is a lot of our strategic partnerships with larger incumbents in this, space on the service and maintenance side of it, where, we can create, the market's large enough where there's a lot of win-win situations that can come out of it. But, no doubt, that's one side of it. There's definitely a huge gap. And then, kind of going back to earlier statements where it's just like consumers are changing, their expectations have already changed. And the market, it's the responsibility of the leaders of, companies to catch up to consumer expectations.
Do you think is it fair to say that those who just would have the statement of, like Anudar mentioned there, my customer isn't on their phone, my customer doesn't do, like, they're going to come in, if you're a service garage or you're an OEM or you're a dealership and you have that mindset, are you declaring defeat? Like, how do you find that?
I think there's always going to be certain bias, that comes from leaders and incumbent, companies. There's also a disconnect, I think, that naturally happens. The larger a company becomes, the more prone they are to becoming disconnected to their end user. And again, I think this is where earlier stage companies, startups, have a strategic competitive advantage. Is, look, it's in our mindset to constantly be talking with the end user, and we're iterating and shifting the product, on a weekly basis. I mean, that's how quickly it moves within a startup environment. So it is like, I guess it's kind of like a bit of natural selection. For even in business, right? Whenever there's disruptive or innovative technology that comes out and it moves quick, I think Chris's point earlier is like, if the boardroom is not reactive enough, that business is stale and it's essentially done before anybody in the boardroom knows it.
Absolutely agree. And I mean, to add a quick thing, because I think, we are all on the same page. And to answer Mark's question, right? How early are we in the game? I would say maybe the game have not even started. Maybe we are in the first inning. There are a lot of innings to go when I just look at our customer base. And I think, what both of you guys said is so critical, right? The consumer drives now. We talk a lot about democratizing technology, and also to Anudar's point, right? Yes, you can say, okay, I'm Mercedes and my typical customer is 60 years old. Guess what? Also, the 60-year-old has a phone today and has kids who show them how to do this kind of stuff, right? So I think the days are over where you can argue that doesn't affect me. It clearly affects you, and especially what we said before, enabling or giving this technology in everybody's hands suddenly creates an expectation, and then you either are on this train or you are left for, let's say, not being not in a good situation. That's what really we see at the moment. It's very interesting. I also hear exactly the same thing that you see. There are a couple who say we have to, let's go, and there are a couple who say, yeah, we really like it, but I'm not sure if it really is a good idea. And especially to the point that you made before, I always look at this from a business go-to-market / business case perspective, right? And the thing is, a lot of companies in this size have a way how to compensate their salespeople to deal with this kind of stuff. And this disrupts the way how they think. And the problem is, if you stick too long to the way how you think, then it's getting harder and harder, because then suddenly numbers go down, things are getting worse and worse, and everybody, instead of let's make a plan, let's execute, is suddenly in panic mode. and that normally typically doesn't serve companies well. So yeah, going back to what I said, early innings, I would say we are still at the first pitch at best.
And I guess that should be, with you saying we're still in the early innings, I guess that should provide hope for those maybe who A, haven't started, or A, maybe are just starting their journey as well. It's okay. Like, it's okay to be there, and there's still opportunity for you. You don't have to go and start from scratch developing your own thing. There's things out there. We all represent tools that do things for people. So there's the hope's not lost yet, I guess, is kind of a message there.
Yeah. And I 100% agree. I think, all three of us, if you think about our individual businesses, right, can be a very important partner and enabler for them, right? And I think that's how all these big companies have to think about this, right? Not always trying to do all the things on your own, because typically it takes 5 years and to get it done, right? Find the right spots where you want to kind of start quick and start fast and get, quickly, nicely things done. And, all of us can really help with that, right? I mean, to Zach's point, and for Nura, it's the same thing. It's like, we have these tools. Just, ask yourself as a big company, how can I make this now available for my customer that they can, in this case, book your rental car from home and you just walk in and you walk out and everything is fine. And the Zach's case, scan your own tires, figure out what's going on, and tell whoever you want to tell it tomorrow, or you better show up tomorrow in my driveway and replace my tires and, send me the bill when you're done, right?
Maybe I just,
Absolutely.
to add to this, Christian, absolutely with you. It doesn't matter whether you are the big OEM or even small car dealership. You have to understand that at some stage you have to define what is your core business, where you have the competence and strengths, and where you just need a good cooperation partner. Because I'm always saying, if I would like to just write a letter, yeah, I'm not starting to program a new Word program, right? So or Microsoft Office or whatever, So it's very clear that nowadays nobody has this huge resources, to develop everything which is necessary in automotive business to survive by your own. Yeah. So even if car dealerships saying, oh, we will develop our own platform for car subscription, I say, yeah, okay, you can do it, but then you will be maybe in 5 years there, but the market will be gone, right? So and this is, I think, those companies will survive who are able, dynamically and flexibly to cooperate and to find the right partners and really push things forward together, not only like trying everything by your own. And you see that even the big OEMs, they have already realized that they are not the core business is not IT tech, so they are starting to cooperate with the big tech companies. So clearly this is a clear direction, I would say. Yeah.
Maybe.
That's a really good note, and I think I think at the end of the day, it's a good way for people to think, as you said, like, we're not going to design new programs. We're using the tools that are out there, and we live in an age where there are a lot of tools out there. You just have to really understand what you need, I guess. And that's kind of a question on its own. And Zach, I'll come to you on this. Is it really that's where people should start, is look at what do I need and then go look for the best solution? Or is it look at the solution and find out what you need based on what's on the market? Which way would you want to approach that?
Yeah, it's a good question, because when you really think about, innovating or doing something new, I think at its core, I kind of said it earlier, but it's going back to your end user and reverse engineering. What type of experience are we trying to really deliver to the end user? And yeah, so I think if you start with the end goal and kind of back cast from there, it definitely can give you a much clearer picture. So, and another cool thing too, talking about, all these different dynamics here is no matter the size of business, if you're a large incumbent or, an earlier stage company, you can still apply the same methods and principles, and kind of thinking through it from like, a lean startup, approach where you don't have to go out and build every single aspect of the solution on your own, but it is, to move much faster and to get to market and to get to, product market fit, customer product, fit, all of those dynamics, that's where it's like having such a unique ecosystem, in this AI space. I mean, that's where you can make leaps and bounds, and totally speed up the timeline at which you deploy things. So,
Chris, from a product perspective, is that speed to market more important than a product market fit? Or like, is it a matter of just getting there first or getting it right, even if it takes longer? From your perspective, you've had a lot of years in product. What's kind of your approach given this age of exponential digital growth?
Getting it right and getting it there first would be the ideal.
Both of the ends.
That doesn't always fly. But I would say get not first would not be my argument, but that get out there quickly. Because again, and I think we're all on the same page, and I think that's also what's missing in this what wasn't required in this industry for the last 20 years, different to other industries, is the customer typically knows the answer, right? And as faster you can say, you like this, you like that, you like this, you like that, as faster you also get to the point to getting it right, right? And I think that's also kind of if I look at the industry where we can still all learn, right? And also help our customers and prospects to help themselves, so to speak, to say, try this, try that, that works, that doesn't, what makes more sense for you, what's the right approach for your audience. Yeah, I think, all of us have great technologies that can help them, right? And all the points that we made before, just start somewhere and try something, right? And that's really also what we see in the product space. And if you think about it, right, also the product development world has significantly changed over the last 15 years. I mean, I do this now since 20, right? In the past, we made plans for 6 months, and everybody knew the moment you kind of store the plan, it's already wrong, right? So now everything is much more agile, which really enables also to things, as I mentioned before, try it, see it, get feedback quickly, turn it around, get feedback quickly. And that really opens up the whole potential also for our customers, because, they can try stuff out, right? I mean, in our case, and Zach is a good example in using some of our technology, like, try just display it, do the tire tread, whatever. Start somewhere and see if your workers, in this case, technicians, when it comes to a discount tire, for example, or for the end users, see if they like it and figure out, what's the way forward to really make their life better and give them a better experience, right? And if everybody starts there, I think we are in much better shape than we were 2 years ago in this industry, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a really good point. It's a topic I could probably talk about for hours, and I really appreciate you guys' insight on this digital, like closing the gap. I think it's super interesting. There's one more topic I'd like to get to, and it's one that we had kind of requested as well from audience members, is this legal compliance topic, because a lot of the innovation we see is a result of legislative change. And I think within automotive, we've seen small shifts change entire sectors of the industry, not only the products. It can have such a direct effect on businesses, on everything that we see. So when we look at automotive, I'm wondering if there's a way to prepare for this kind of legislative change, or is it more of a reactive nature, I think is kind of the question that I'm trying to go after here. Anudar, you've been in the industry, you've worked for OEMs, you've worked for an OEM during a ton of legislative change and probably a number of different countries that you've seen, which is another topic on its own, different legislative changes in different parts of the world. How have you found that? Is there a way to prepare, or is it really just you have to wait and see what comes?
I mean, in many cases, yeah, you just react. In some cases, maybe you already see the development and try to be prepared. But in the end, so what I see in the legal framework for automotive business, I would say in regards to the online platform business, digital solutions, and so on, there if you sell cars online or offer car subscriptions, for example, and so on, so that the legal framework is more or less set, right? So there is clear that there are some regulations, of course, in Europe more strict, especially data protection regulations. They are not that easy, let's say, to not only to be in compliance with, but in the end also to drive the business, the digital business quickly. So you have to really sometimes let's say program some workarounds and whatever, in order to comply with this. But at least it is said. But if we go into and think about autonomous driving and so on, then this is a new area. So and how the legislation will work. I mean, there are already some new rules and regulations. For example, for next year, that every bigger companies, they have to have this cyber security management system and so on. So it becomes more and more, let's say, important. So in regards to this, what happens to the in-car data, who owns the data, how the data has to be protected, and so on and so forth. Who has the possibility to use this data, and how? What is the regulation in regards to this? But also, if we start to think about the autonomous driving car, so the cyber security becomes even bigger topic, right? So in order to protect not only the customer data, but also to protect the car and also the people so in the car from cyber attacks and so on. So starting with this, or some criminal intent and so on. So this is a huge, let's say, field, and I don't know how the regulations will be, and in the end, how they will restrict maybe the business, or how they will allow to develop the business quickly. We will see.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to a lot of anticipation and then just kind of doing your best. Chris, from a product point of view, obviously with something being developed in a new space, how much account has to be taken into potential legislative change or current laws that exist or different geographical distance? How much does that play a role in the development of new things?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And as Anuda said, right, I mean, also the data protection thing is a critical thing for us to be compliant. I look at this, I would say 2-3 sides, right? I think some of the stuff, legislation is always late. And I think, with all the democratization that we said before, customers now very often tell where you have to, follow up with legal requirements. That would be one case. As Anuda said, there are clearly things, especially when it comes to self-driving car, which is a big thing, right? You don't want to have a hacker, start driving everybody who is in a German Autobahn suddenly, things are going south. We don't want that. Another component that we see as coming is the whole environmental requirements, right? That you also, as trucking company, has to at some point, and that they will come. There's already legislation prepared in California and in Europe for reporting on environmental impact on the tire usage. So yeah, there are components, and again, I think bottom line from my perspective would be big companies and smaller companies focus, as Anuda said before, really on what is your core competency, and find the partners like everybody who is in this room today and work with them, right? Because we are just much more flexible to turn things around, right? than a big company is, which is obvious, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Find your right partners. But yeah, I would say there are kind of three components that I look at when I ask myself, what's the next thing we build?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Zach, on to you for this, because you've built a solution with a lot of partners built into your tool. Are you trusting them to sort of manage that compliance side? What element do you play in it? You're obviously collecting a lot of vehicle data in your processes as well, but then you work with a lot of partners that help you do that. So you're kind of in like a weird gray zone. How do you find this compliance topic?
Yeah, I mean, kind of where we start with it, right? Because we're direct to consumer, delivering it, to a consumer. But I think we have to start with trust and transparency, first and foremost. Because when we talk about machine learning models, predictive analytics, AI, all of these components wrapped up into this technology box, right? Like if an end user, if a consumer doesn't understand what is my information being used for and how does it benefit me? Like if they don't understand that, there there isn't true trust that's established. And when there's not true trust established, that's where regulation can become overreaching. Like, and it can become like really convoluted. And unfortunately, in some industries, if there's too much regulation, obviously it's too much of a burden to continue innovation, right? And really driving things forward. So that's where we start first and foremost, is making sure that there's trust and transparency established and our end user understands, like, through your data, these are the benefits that you'll receive from it. And it's all about changing their experience as a consumer. Like, use your data as a benefit so you can have more of an advantage from, not only like a pricing perspective, like let's figure out how to, become more efficient to save you more money on these services. But then also, like, all talking about preventative maintenance, when it comes to a vehicle, how can we help you save money in the long term with this big investment you have into this vehicle? So that's, I think, the foundational piece when we talk about delivering this technology directly to a consumer, trust and transparency. And, we all have to be proactive in trying to shape the future that we want. And, I think it is, we still all have to be responsible of, making sure that whatever platform, these technologies are being delivered through is safe and secure for everybody, front and back end. And then, yeah, I think from there, like, we still have to be engaged from a legislative perspective to make sure it's consistent across the board for everybody.
Yeah, so driving it as well as complying with it as well, and kind of as a whole industry, trying to drive the change that we see our customers asking for, and then making sure it fits within the box of what's legally compliant. I think it's a really nice way to wrap it up. And yeah, kind of bring this conversation to a close. It's incredibly fascinating, these topics. Like I said, I could literally talk to all of you for hours. Some of you I have, and I appreciate that. If you want to check out our podcast, we have great talks with Zach and Anudar on there as well. But first and foremost, thank you everyone for being with me. I really enjoyed this talk, and tons of insight. I got so many notes on my piece of paper here. Hope those watching do as well. But yeah, thank you so much for being with me. I really appreciate the time today, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Take care,
Yeah, and
guys.
everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. If you do have any questions about what you heard, just drop us a line, and we'll be in touch, and we can connect you with anyone here on the call, and perhaps get you more answers of what was discussed. All right, so happy holidays, everyone. Have a great morning, great afternoon, great evening, wherever you are.
Bye bye.
We'll talk to you soon.
Happy
Thanks everyone
holidays.
for
Take care,
watching.
guys. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.